You are now watching the Amazing Mets pregame show with your hosts, Rob and CP.
Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets! Let's go Mets!
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets pregame show. How is everybody doing today? And Mets fans, you got to be pumped up about our New York Mets. We're both wearing sunglasses today. You know why? Because the Mets are burning hot right now. You need some sunshades to take away that sun. That's how hot they are. And we're going to talk about it today. 14-2. I mean, beat down of the Texas Rangers. We couldn't ask for a more complete game from our New York Mets, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Holy cow, we got a lot to talk about, Rob. You missed a very eventful game last night. I know that you were at work grinding away. Listen, we held it down. Did a little bit of a live stream earlier on in the day at like 2 p.m. talking about the lineup, talking about the upcoming series. And then we went live for the post game, and the post game was popping. I appreciate everyone being in the post game. I had my guy Carson from the Mets Weekly Pod on, and we had a lot of discussion surrounding this team right now that is scorching hot, like you see here with our shades. Obviously, we got to sort of shield our eyes from how hot this Mets lineup is right now. I mean, you name it. They're hitting Nimmo, Pete, Lindor, JD Martinez, Vientos with 3 hits, Alvarez with 3 hits. Holy cow. 22 hits on the night yesterday. It was an offensive barrage. David Peterson got the job done as well. It's great to be here. I appreciate you all. Q&A up on the live chat right now. Hit those thumbs up, and let's have a hell of a stream.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was at work. I actually was extremely busy, and I didn't even get a chance to look at my phone and check the scores. And I heard the messages when I have my earphones in, and I just I'm like, it ain't a text. It's clearly the group chat. So I'm thinking, oh man, they're getting their ass kicked. You know, the group chat's usually going crazy when we're losing and not playing well. And I'm like, oh, this is not going good. And then I saw 7-0, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it because this is what we wanted to see coming out of the homestand, right? We didn't want them to lay an egg, right? I don't think anybody expected the offensive barrage that we got yesterday. I mean, it was just pure. It was perfect. Like, there's nothing to complain about yesterday. And what they need to do, as we talk about game 2, is to continue that momentum. And clearly, not having a day off after the 5-1 homestand, clearly they rode that momentum right into Arlington. And the Texas Rangers didn't know what hit them. You saw right, they didn't know what the hell to do. Everything went wrong for them. And again, when you're playing a team that is struggling, anything that goes wrong will go wrong. And the Mets didn't give them even a chance to breathe. And I love it. And again, the lineup, I mean, you can't hate the lineup. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I know people were complaining about the DJ Stewart in the lineup, and then he proved everybody. Yeah, absolutely. And that's okay. Listen, I would have too if I was on the pregame or the postgame. Like, it would have been like, wow, this lineup don't make sense. But you know what? Everything that Mendoza and Stearns is doing right now, whatever they touch, whatever changes they make, trust them. They know what they're doing, right? Even though DJ Stewart is hitting under 200, he did damage yesterday. Like, I mean, in a spot where he probably shouldn't have been, but it worked out. Like, whatever they're doing with analytics, matchups, or just a gut decision, they're doing it, and it's working. And you know what? Riding this hot streak for as long as we possibly can, keep on doing what you're doing, right? The lineup is, I mean, I don't think anybody can complain about the lineup today. Look at 1 through 7. Like, if you're not worried about 1 through 7, especially when everybody's hot, Nimmo's hot, Alonso's hot, Martinez was still red hot, Lindor is hot, right? Marte is still hitting the ball, the cover off the ball. I think Vientos looking like he's starting to get his swing back, and Alvarez got a bunch of hits yesterday as well. It's just everybody. Like, this lineup is relentless. And this is what we thought we were going, not to this level, but we thought this lineup could put up runs very easily because they've done it before, right? They scored the 5-6 runs per ball game on average. That wasn't supposed to be the problem. It was Can the pitching hold up? Well, the pitching has. And now this lineup is somewhat complete now. And you see what happens when the pitching has been, for the most part this year, pretty good. And the lineup actually shows up and do what they were supposed to do all along. Man, it's fun. Because this team is not easy to beat anymore. Because when you got the top four beating up and being the main guys doing the damage in this lineup, they're very hard to beat, Chris.
I mean, just look at that top four. If you're an opposing pitcher and you know those guys are hot at the same time and they're putting competent at-bats and swings together, and you look at those names on paper, an opposing pitcher has to be peeing his pants before the game. Like, those guys are absolutely lethal. And so it's great to see, because we have been saying this for so long, right, Rob? Like, this is something where this offense, we know the capability. It's about everyone doing their part together, not just the bottom, not just the top, or not just JD Martinez by himself, but everyone collectively. In the box score from the last couple of nights, it's been everyone top to bottom. I know Tyrone Taylor took the over yesterday. I think one more guy took an over, but nonetheless, it doesn't really matter. 14 runs. That's me. Like, that's speechless. That's like speechless category. I don't know what to say to that. I'm not accustomed to that. I'm not used to that.
Nope.
So I'm going to take that anytime I can get it. And you know what? At this point right now, I'm not satisfied. I'm going into game 2 tonight. What do we always say? What do I always say? Take game 1. They did so, and you have a great opportunity with your best pitcher on the mound right now, and Luis Severino, to take game 2 and get the series win out the way. So that way, when it comes time tomorrow to watch the game, us as fans are hoping for a sweep and not getting the series win there. But nonetheless, we'll see how everything plays out tonight. But I agree with you. I'm loving the way the processes are coming together for this team, and the results are following. Beautiful at-bats. And yesterday, it seemed to be death by a million cuts for Mr. John Gray, whose ERA skyrocketed by 1 whole run from the beginning of the game to the end of the game when he got out. He got tattooed. He was carrying a 2.17 ERA coming into last night's game, and it's up around, I believe, 3.13, maybe 3.17 as well. So I'm not exactly sure what it is, but wow. This team is rolling. Like I said, the opposing pitchers know what type of Mets team is coming into play at their ballpark, whether it's the Texas Rangers or the Chicago Cubs. So you got to love it. Keep riding the wave. And I know that Christopher on my channel, great comment as well, because I reinforced the comment on my live stream yesterday. I'm not sure if Christopher is here with us in the chat or if you're watching the replay. Always great comments on my streams, under my videos, etc. Christopher actually kind of asked me, you know, it wasn't really a question. It was like, defending world champs, should the Mets be concerned? And I was like, hell no, the Mets shouldn't be concerned. For 2 reasons. 1, you're already playing great baseball.
Yep.
2, JD Martinez in that players-only meeting made it a point as the veteran of that lineup to tell the team, what more do we all have to lose as a ball club right now with the expectations being set where they are? 0 reason to press, 0 reason to be worried. Go out there and play your game. And that's exactly what this Mets team has been doing. And they've been looking like they've been having fun while doing it. More smiles, more guys giving handshakes, more celebrations. It's funny what kind of energy and culture you can build up when winning becomes a good, stable part of your organization. So I know we're getting ahead of ourselves right now. I understand the Mets are winners of 6 of their last 6. I believe they're 12 of their last 16 since the players' meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But man, this is great baseball to watch in a nutshell, and we got to enjoy this.
Yeah, and when was the last time we actually spoke about a lineup that is feared by a team that's facing the Mets? We haven't said that in a long time, right? We always worried about, is this lineup going to show up? We got to worry about this team. We got to worry about their offense. We got to worry about their pitching staff. It was never fear the Mets. I'm telling you right now, if I'm a pitcher right now, look, if I'm Michael Lorenzen, who's been pretty decent this year, but not one of their better pitchers, right? He's been good. But if you're Michael Lorenzen right now and you just saw a 14-run barrage and just I mean, it was just haymakers after haymakers, uppercuts after uppercuts. I mean, you got up, you got your ass knocked right back down. I mean, if you're Michael Lorenzen right now, who are you looking to? Who are you looking to walk? Who are you looking to get out? All right, I'm going to try to get to this guy in the lineup to get out of this inning. There isn't anybody, especially definitely in the top 5. Like, you're in trouble. You're absolutely in trouble, and that includes going to the bottom of the order who are starting to hit that ball even more too. And then there's nowhere to get outs. So if you're a pitcher right now, there's no breathing room. There's no taking a deep breath in this part of the lineup like it was for the majority of the year, prior to our winning stretch, right? It was the top of the order that, all right, we can work around this top of the order when the bottom of the order is doing the job and vice versa. So it's great. It's great to feel confident going into a ball game, right? There was too many times in May where we never we shrug our shoulders. Like, I don't know what to expect from this team. You know what I expect from this team now? A good performance. And if somebody doesn't do the job, somebody's going to step up and do the job and pick that guy up, pick that teammate up. And that's the huge difference, Chris. And you brought it up. The culture, the chemistry. It feels different, right? When you're winning games, everything seems like it's clicking, right? And when somebody can't come through, the next person will. And we always talked about that next person up mentality. And that's exactly what they're doing especially during this stretch. And you know what? It got them right back into the thick of things. And oh, by the way, for everybody who says you can't, look how many teams they have to jump. Well, yesterday they jumped over 2 teams. They jumped over the Cubs and the Reds, right? They win today. Yep. They might jump over another 2 teams because they're only a half a game from the 2 teams in front of them. They might jump another 2. So in 2 days, they jump 4 teams. And there's a pretty good chance that they could be a half a game or a game or tied for a wild card spot, depending on what people do. Now, a lot of moving parts. And again, I know people don't like to talk about the wild card, or certain people do. I'm gonna beat it in everybody's heads because, Chris, you do this all the time, right? The time, right? It's coming, right? The Mets season is July 31st. That's the end of their season. It could be that is season number 1. There's 2 seasons. I said this many times. Season 1 is prior to the deadline. Season 2 is TBD because we don't know. It's irrelevant. So that's why you got to play like July 31st is the end of the season and you're racing to a wild card spot. They have to play these last 32, 33 odd games until the deadline. Like, that's the end of the season, and it's a run to the playoffs, run to the wild card spot. And the Braves are falling rather quickly as well. The Mets are only 5 games from them, and I'm not going that crazy. But now there's a ton of options now because the Braves seemingly are falling apart on their own. We're going to be facing them I think in the next 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. That can be a really big series. And I'm not saying that the Mets in 3 weeks from now are going to still be on this crazy hot streak. I mean, if they are, watch out because the Mets are the hottest team in baseball right now. We're not wearing the glasses for appearances, right? They're red hot right now. Nobody wants to face them. And that goes for any team, not just the Texas Rangers who are 33-39. By the way, the Mets have a better record than them. Crazy, right? The world champs, right? That World Series hangover is a bitch. And you know what? Nobody wants to face us. So keep that fear. Take it into game 2. Win the series. And now house money tomorrow. Now, we don't like to be greedy because we are Mets fans. There's always that pessimism as a Mets fan, that's that little bit of optimism, but a lot of pessimism. But if you win today, you're playing with house money tomorrow. All the pressure's on the Rangers. They're not trying to get swept. And the momentum is just clearly on the Mets right now. And unfortunately, if we do take care of business, we do have an off day on Thursday, but I don't think this is going to stop the momentum. But about game 2, don't take that pressure off their throats. Press harder because you don't want to wake up the sleeping giant because they're a dangerous team, right? They got the players. We all seen it in the playoffs last year. We seen that run in the playoffs they had. They're a dangerous team. You don't want to wake them up. Like, let them wake up next week. I don't care. Or on Friday. I don't care. But right now, continue to put pressure on this team because you could see that things are going wrong quickly for them and they don't know what to do. So you got to keep on doing it, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of points here. Shout out to everybody in the chat first and foremost before we speak solely on game 2 here, because like I said, last night was just a little bit of a laugher. I definitely don't expect that to be the case tonight, especially when you have another good pitcher, right? With a respectable ERA and just good stuff in general with his 7-pitch arsenal and Michael Lorenzen going for the Texas Rangers. But shout out to Robert, Frank, M Easy, who's showing a little bit of that pessimism, saying the offense is going to come back down to earth today. That's okay. Understand. I'm not expecting 14 runs, but I'm definitely
Maybe
expecting
7.
a little bit. Yeah, maybe 7, maybe half that. Give me half that. I'm happy. Shout out Daniel, Mike, Hector, Blunt Thoughts. Appreciate you being here. We had a whole discussion prior to this live stream on X about Jeff McNeil going back and forth. Tune in. Not sure if you're still doing it. Tell everybody in the chat if you're doing the live watch along tonight. I wanted to be a part of that tonight, but unfortunately, this move for me has been crazy. Got to go furniture shopping. You know how that goes. Really want to be a part of that. But if you do it solo, or if you have a guest up on there, definitely tune into the Blunt Thoughts live watch along with Hector as well. Brad, shout out to you as well. I appreciate you all being here. Stony, thank you so much. Listen, yeah, if you weren't here for the beginning of the stream, we're just about 17 minutes in. We do look good in these shades, Rob. You gotta admit, we look good in these shades, but we're not doing it because we look good. All right, we're doing it because the Mets' future is bright. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, this team is on fire, and momentum is a huge thing in the game of baseball, like you said. Like, it's a very cliche statement, but in a sort of season where you have 162 games, guys get exhausted. That's why you kind of see sometimes extended slumps, because guys are just purely exhausted. I know that we're only a fraction of the season in, but this is a lot of wear and tear on teams. And I'm not making any excuses for the Mets because they don't deserve any excuses, and I'm not going to be the one to give it to them. But you got to ride this wave. I always say that as well. I'm going to keep saying it until they go on another losing streak, because it's inevitable. And you said that last stream as well, Rob. It's inevitable. These guys will come back down to earth. They will lose a ball game. They will lose a couple ball games in a row, but it's about weathering that storm.
Yep.
So Luis Severino tonight, they've got the individual hitters over there in Texas, Seager, Simeon, Garcia. Now all of them have woken up, Josh Smith even. Not all of them have woken up at the same time. They're kind of playing individual baseball like the New York Mets were a couple weeks ago when you talk about great individual performances, but not a team performance that'll get you wins and get you runs in a hurry. That's kind of the baseball that they're playing. And I forgot to mention Robbie Grossman in that because he was responsible for the only 2 runs that they got yesterday. But nonetheless, very excited for Luis Severino's start here. And I always say that, and I always look forward to Luis Severino's starts right now. And I always did, especially coming into the season, right? Because I really thought that was an underrated signing. But he is going to be the anchor of this rotation until that quote unquote first half of the season is over, like you said, come deadline season, right? And we're not going to have the discussion if the Mets are going to be buyers or sellers. We're going to have the discussion later on. Right now, on June 18th, is not the time to do it. But what I will say, though, is that they were very confident in the broadcast yesterday that, or a couple games ago, talking about Kodai Senga and how his timeline is naturally going to be after that deadline. Like, with the way he has to ramp up with his setbacks, he's not going to be in the equation probably 99.5% with positivity in that until after the deadline. So the guy that's going tonight, Luis Severino, we expect consistency from him. We expected it from Quintana, didn't get it. I expected it from Hauser with what he did in Milwaukee in his Milwaukee days. Didn't get it, got moved to the bullpen. Now we're getting consistency in that bullpen from Hauser, but it's not starting pitching. It's not in a starting pitching role. Luis Severino has to be that guy. I know Tyler McGill has been better. I know David Peterson has been better, and I know Sean Manaea is coming off of a strong start. But with those 3 guys I just named recently, especially with Christian Scott, and I won't even get into the Christian Scott topic on this stream. You all know how I feel. He's making a start tonight. That'll be his 3rd start in AAA. Talk about innings limit. That's a whole different discussion. But Luis Severino has to be that guy that gives you consistent starts, because I don't expect longevity out of David Peterson, although he gave us 6 innings in a laugher yesterday. You still saw glimpses of him not being able to put away hitters at times, especially in pitchers' counts. Yeah. Tyler McGill, same thing. Sean Manaea, same thing. 5 strong, solid innings out of those guys, and you're almost content if they keep you in the ball game. Luis Severino's a different story.
Yep.
So I'm really curious to see how he performs tonight. Because like you said, we understand that the Rangers, right in front of your screen here, 33 and 39, they're not performing up to expectations. Little bit of a hangover, a World Series hangover, like you just mentioned, but we know what they're capable of. I have full trust in Luis Severino until he shows me otherwise. And what he's been doing so far this season is grounds for an extension. I'm sorry. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but that guy also just still being in the prime of his career, I'm talking about extension before I'm talking selling with Luis Severino. That's that. That's enough deadline talk. I'm excited for tonight. And I mentioned it in my live stream yesterday. It wasn't the post game, but it was the first live stream. This team is making me want to turn on the TV and hit that power button and watch MLB the pregame show. Whereas a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I'm just barely making it to the game in the first inning. Do I want to put myself through misery going through 3 hours watching the same heartbreak that I witnessed the night before? Obviously, like I said, we do it because we love this team and we're here to talk about them consistently on our platform. But it got to a point where it really felt like rock bottom here in 2024 at one point. And it was just like, it's really a struggle to turn on the TV and watch the complete and entire ball game. Right now, I can't get enough of this team. I can't. So this is kind of where I'm at as a Mets fan. And I think a lot of people have to just start riding this wave, right? A lot of people are still pessimistic. They still need in their brains to see more from the Mets. And I'm sort of still in line with that theory as well. But I would be lying to you if I told you I'm not going to enjoy this right now while it lasts. Because you never know when they're going to come back down to earth. And you never know when shit's going to hit the fan, right? So to speak. So let's enjoy it. Let's see what they got. And hopefully the good times keep rolling for the foreseeable future. Let's get it. Luis Severino, it starts with you.
Yep, absolutely. And, you talked about Luis Severino, right? Let's give ourselves, me and you, credit, because we were two of the few that said that Severino was a great signing, right? We said it from the day one. A lot of people and a lot of people in our chats during our streams, we're not happy that we gave him $13 million for a guy who had his worst year of his career and is often injured. The fact of the matter is, it was all about that pitching lab that changed a little bit of his mechanics. There was a lot of his tipping of the pitching that the Mets, if it was Hefner, let's not, a lot of people don't want to give Hefner credit for anything, but you know what? Severino might be a product of Hefner helping him out with that, because that was the big talk in spring training, that Hefner really did figure out that he was tipping pitches big time with putting his glove a little more higher when he was throwing a breaking ball, and then a little lower when he was going to throw his fastball. He noticed that, and it was talked about in spring training. And then with the pitching lab, so he can repeat his mechanics and fix his glove positioning prior to when he comes to the set, that pitching lab fixed Severino. And with the combination of Hefner doing working with him and the pitching lab, it made Severino into the pitcher Yankee fans thought he was going to be for years, right? There was that talk about Severino and DeGrom, who's better, right? So let's not act like this guy wasn't one of the better pitchers in baseball not too long ago, and he's still very young. And we talked about this, a month ago, about giving Severino an extension, and a lot of people didn't like that. It's too early. It's early. He can still get hurt. It's not about him getting hurt, right? Any pitcher can get hurt at any moment, regardless if they're good or not. But you don't want to be bidding against another team for a guy who's already on your team, who clearly enjoys it here. Why not try? Why not get him into the room and say, listen, we got a 2-3 year deal, maybe a three-year deal with an option, or 2-year deal with an option. Give him some good money, right? There's no reason why you can't get. He's pitching like if he's pitching to a 3 ERA for the rest of the season, that's worthy of, look at the salary of 3 ERA pitchers, between $17 and $20 million. I know that's a lot of money, but he doesn't deserve it. If it wasn't for Severino, we'd be in deep shit right now. Like, let's be honest about this. This rotation was in trouble. This rotation was very much in trouble. And we were considering, Quintana going to the bullpen or DFA'd, right? Who knows what happened with Mania when he was struggling for a couple of games, and all we were relying on Severino to pitch really damn good when he pitched every fifth day. And remember, this pitching staff has held up without Kodai Senga, and Kodai Senga is not going to be no help until after the deadline, and who knows what that's going to mean at that time. It might mean just keeping him, fresh for next year. But the fact of the matter is, this pitching staff has been doing their job for the most part. The changes they have made with Hauser going to the bullpen, Christian Scott might come up in 2025. You never know, Chris. But he's, look, I'm expecting them to perform, right? I know these guys are good. I know Severino is good. He's got the stuff to be an ace. He is our ace, even if he wasn't pitching that, really that well, because he has the best stuff amongst the entire rotation. So I expect him to go out there and dominate. It's just that simple. I'm sorry. Every Mets fan, if I would have said on June, what the hell is today's date? 18th, if Severino had a 3.12 ERA, every Met fan would have signed on that dotted line, because nobody. What do you have, a 6.5 ERA last year? 7?
Yes,
Like
he did.
8.
Yep.
Excuse me, he had an 8 ERA. That's how bad he was. But all the stuff is there, and whatever changed Severino, if it was a combination of Hefner in the pitching lab and the Mets organization that nobody wants to give them credit for what they've done this year with the pitching staff, as good as they've been, bullpen and starting rotation, with all the troubles they went through, and still kept their head above water to make this type of run again, and gave us an opportunity to get back into this race when we were 6.5 games out of a wild card spot, not even 2.5 weeks ago. We gained 5.5 games in 2 weeks. That's a huge deal. And that's kudos to the coaching staff, Stearns, and of course the players. And you know what? Mendoza, I know Hector talked about him being the MVP. You're damn right. 100%. Mendoza, a lot of people didn't like him being hired as the manager, but he's done a hell of a job. He stood up for his players. He keeps them all accountable, no matter if you're the highest paid or the lowest paid. You're accountable, right? David Stearns, same thing. What has he done? The two guys that he can probably favor on this roster, and Hauser and Tyrone Taylor, he said, Hauser, listen, I know you're my guy. It was my first move as a Mets, running the Mets, but you're not helping us right now in the rotation. Get your ass in the bullpen and do your job. And he's been outstanding for us, and it's helped the bullpen. It's helped our long man situation. So everything that the Mets talked about in spring training about accountability and, making sure that everybody does their job. Now, it took a while, but finally, maybe May was our bad month. And finally, June, because April was solid, right? We talked about it. Everybody would have signed for a 500 April. That's what we got. May was a disaster. We all know that. Right now, the Mets are red hot in June. Maybe the Mets got their big bad month out of the way very early, which we always talk about. That middle of the season, like that June, is the worst time to have a bad month. May, you can recover. June is hard to recover because you got the deadline coming up. So having a good June, you could ride that momentum. It's easier to recover in having a bad May than a really bad June. And I've always felt like that. And again, we got 2 weeks until June is over. So we could be talking about, bad things to come. But right now, like you said, Chris, you have to ride the wave, because why not? We don't get a lot of these happy, these waves, these happy moments for Mets fans. They're few and far between. Enjoy it. And it starts tonight with Sevy on the mound, who is our best pitcher, Chris.
I'll tell you what, though, I'm crossing my fingers in terms of that coming to fruition and just riding out the rest of this June and not having a disasterful rest of the 2 weeks in June. And I really hope that this team avoids that quote unquote. I know this is awesome, an awesome term in the Mets fan base, the June swoon. But yeah, it is looking like May was that month that they needed to weather the storm. And we're not sitting here telling you all that there's not going to be another storm needed to be weathered, because it could come at any moment. We don't know. But what I will say, though, going into this game, we didn't really so much see it yesterday, although it was kind of a telltale sign in terms of who the higher leverage guys in his bullpen are going to be going forward here, especially in the near future. Adam Ottavino, I believed, worked 2 innings yesterday. Drew Smith got that last inning. And you kind of saved the rest of the arms. And that's kind of what I was trying to figure out, how this team was going to play it forward with this bullpen coming into this series when we did that roundtable podcast back on Sunday. Little bit hard to tell still, especially right with last night being such a laugher as it was 14-2. But the bullpen management is going to be something that everybody should be watching out for. How are they going to use Hauser now that it seems like he can give you length and longevity, competent longevity out of that bullpen? How are they going to use Sean Reed-Foley, who may or may not be better than Drew Smith and Adam Ottavino in higher leverage situations? How are they going to use Daniel Nunez? How are they going to use Reed Garrett? Which one of those guys is going to be the setup man to Mr. Edwin Diaz, who seemed to found his groove? So still a lot of question marks in terms of how this bullpen is going to be utilized, but I like the actual options that Mr. Mendoza has to utilize late in the ball games, right? And I think Eloise was talking about it earlier in the chat here, talking about these starting pitchers not being able to go further into games, right? With the names that I mentioned outside of maybe a Christian Scott or Luis Severino, obviously David Peterson going 6, but I'm talking about generally what we've seen out of McGill, Peterson, Manaea is 4 2/3, 5 1/3, somewhere around that ballpark, and not quite getting to 6 or 7 because the offense hasn't provided that sort of breathing room for them. Right. And we always talk about that as well. And that's a great point because it goes hand in hand with how the Mets utilize their bullpen and which guys are used in which spots. Right. We talk about Adam Ottavino moving from a 7th inning, 8th inning guy to a 5th or 6th inning guy and just getting him out of the high leverage situations. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that the 5th or 6th inning is not high leverage, because if you're in a 0-1 ball game, 1-2 ball game, etc., if it's close, obviously it's still considered high leverage. But when it comes down to the late innings of the game, where we've seen this team already in 2024 blow countless of games in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. I mean, if we won a fraction of the 7th, 8th, 9th inning games that this Mets team has lost so far in 2024, we would be sitting here maybe at like 40-31. We'd be 9 games, or somewhere around that ballpark. I'm not trying to do math right now, but let's just say they won 5 or 6 games in addition right here, right? That can put them somewhere around 40-31. I hope I'm doing my math right. Don't cook me. I'm wearing shades. I can't see. But anyways, you know what I'm trying to get at, though.
Yeah.
How many games have we lost in the late innings?
Yeah.
How many games?
Yep.
This would be a completely different discussion. We wouldn't be talking about trying to get to an even 500. We'd already be better than 500.
Yep.
And now we have to sit here and talk about, let's just get to 500, which should be the first goal, absolutely. But it's a snowball effect. So I really hope that this bullpen is able to hold it down. Obviously, by virtue of, and June Bloom, I like that. I like that a lot. 39 and 37. I'm squinting right here trying to read the comment section. I apologize, but shout out to Ricardo and Ethan. But listen, you get where I'm getting at here? It would be a completely different discussion. I know the bullpen faltered a little bit, and it wasn't really their fault because a couple of unforeseen things happened, injuries, the Lopez DFA, which I've brought, to this stream multiple times and giving my thoughts and opinions about that. But weathering the storm is what it's all about. They had a little bit of a rocky stretch there, especially when Edwin Diaz went in the IL. Reed Garrett had to be used more, and he kind of faltered in that sort of closer role, and he kind of came back down to earth. But now you get to get him in more of a consistent role. You get to get him in a, I guess, lesser innings type of role, and you get to evenly distribute the innings that you give out to your bullpen guys. And you just hope, like the offense all coming together, you hope that not only Edwin Diaz, Daniel Nunez, and Reed Garrett, Sean Reed-Foley continue their dominance in the bullpen. You hope that guys like Drew Smith and Adam Ottavino figure it out, so it's a complete collective bullpen.
Yep.
That's what you got to hope for as well. So I'm excited. I guess it's not even the fear of the unknown. Like I said, And like Carlos said in the chat, keeping expectations low. JD Martinez said the same thing. You got nothing to lose. There should be no pressure. It's not even so much the fear of the unknown. At this point, with where we were talking about and where we were looking at this Mets team and where they were at a couple weeks ago, that unknown for me, as kind of psycho as it sounds, is kind of exciting.
Yep.
I'm kind of excited to see where this Mets team goes.
Yep.
Because this is like going to give us the direct answer if they're a good team or a bad team here, right?
Yep.
Are they able to completely dig themselves out of this hole? Or is this kind of just like a teaser they're giving us before they fall right back into line of where they were at before? So I'm excited, man. I think a lot of people should be excited.
Yeah. Again, we hope that doesn't become the case. You know, they're still digging themselves out of that hole, but we hope it doesn't. It ain't going to be a big fall or a hard fall after this streak. But on the record would have been 39-32, and that would make them a half a game out of the first wild card spot and up 2.5 games in the second wild. I'm sorry, 2.5 games in the second wild card ahead. That's the difference of having a May where if you would have won even half of those blown games late in the game, we would have been 39-32, a half a game out of a number one wild card, and we'll be looking really good right now instead of trying to chase in June. But you know what? Let's see if they can keep on doing it. And it just shows you when all things are clicking, how good this team can be. And then you can say that about many teams, but many teams never get everything clicking at once. And that's why there's bad teams that are not doing well, because everything is not running on all cylinders. And when that is the case, you could see how dangerous this team is. And again, everybody's not going to stay hot. I mean, who knows? They might. This June might be outstanding. We might have a hot June the entire month. If we have a hot June the entire month, which is possible, by the way, you know, we're only 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away until June's over. You know, if they finish this June on a really good streak and be 8, 9, maybe 10 games over 500, we're talking about the Mets being in a wild card spot. Because again, I keep on saying this: name me a team in the National League that people consider a mediocre, bad team who has had 2 hot streaks as the Mets in April and now in June, or late May into June. None. You maybe 1 or 2, and one of them is the Mets. Instead of the division guys right now, the division teams that are winning, other than that, nobody is. So these hot streaks does matter. This is how bad the National League is, and why the Mets always had an opportunity here, and they had to have a June like this and another hot streak like this to get back into it, because nobody's really winning anything. Look at all these records. Besides St. Louis, there's in Washington 5-5, 6-4, 4-6, 3-7. A lot of 500s. I said it, guys. A lot of these teams are going 500 at best every 10 games. If you get 2 games over that, if you're 6-4, 7-3, you are gaining games on those teams. That's why you jumped 2 yesterday. If you win today, a pretty good chance you're going to jump at least 1, probably 2, and we jump 4 teams in 2 days. And we might jump more teams if everybody loses. I know that's a lot to think about, but it's very possible. Again, not even in a 10-game stretch, the Mets gained 5 games in the standings that quickly. And
can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
And this goes completely against taking it 1 game at a time. But as it pertains to the actual schedule for the Mets, if they're able to weather the storm for the rest of June, please take a look at the schedule for the first 2 weeks of July. And that is just like, it gives me so much confidence going into the month of July. You got the Nationals for 4. You got Pittsburgh for 4. You see the Nationals again for 3, I believe. And then you see the Rockies for 3. That's your first 2 weeks of July. 2 teams, right, that are directly ahead of you in the Nationals and Pirates. And then the Rockies, who are the Rockies, and you got to take a series from them, or else that would just be a disaster. But you weather the storm against the rest of the series against Texas, then Chicago, Then the Yankees and Houston. That's the rest of your June. Please, you could just have a winning record, but you don't got to go all out. You don't got to,
Yep.
only lose 1 or 2 in that stretch. You can afford to lose some. Although
Yes.
we are here talking about this team pretty much every day, we don't want them to lose any. But look at that schedule in July.
Yep.
Please get me to a good spot in July, and then I bet you, right, I'm gonna have a great feeling about them walking into that national series starting the
Yep.
first 2 weeks of July. It's gonna be
Yep. And the Nationals, who are in a wild card spot right now, the Mets did sweep that team, by the way. Right, the team that's went 8-2 and our game on the 500 are in the second. If I'm not mistaken, they're in the second. No, they're not there yet. They're in the second wild card. I'm sorry, they're in the third wild. Well, they were in the third wild
third
card.
wild card.
They're bouncing
Yep.
back and forth with San Francisco, so they're right there. And the Mets did sweep them. For everybody who forgot about that rather quickly, but yeah, the July schedule again on paper looks very good for us. Now, the Mets have been very well known to lose series like that and play down to their competition. But if they're going through a hot June, right, it puts them in a spot where, there's belief. And I think this team needs the confidence. They finally showed that they can score runs at home. And I think that took a lot of pressure, a lot of weight off their shoulders. And they're going to run into it, and they ran right into the road trip like they've been doing on the road, scoring runs. So if the June ends in a 9-10 games, maybe even more than that, over 500 in June, and the teams that, like you said, right, Washington, Pittsburgh, teams that we might even pass Pittsburgh by then, even further. I think we already did pass them right now. But yeah, I mean, they're right in front of us, a half a game, right? By the time we face them, we might be well ahead of them. So you got to beat those teams. And to be honest with you guys, we are better than the Nationals and the Pirates. I'm sorry. We are.
Hands
You can
down.
just see.
Hands down.
Yeah, the Mets weren't playing that well when we went to Washington. They were playing okay, but they weren't playing great. And we still beat them because we have the talent to beat them. They're not there yet. They're a good young team. They're up and coming, but they're not there yet. You got to take advantage of it, just like they got to take advantage of a team like the Texas Rangers, who are not looking like the world champs of last year. So take advantage of that to finish up this stream, Chris. Let's get the 2 games on the 500 with Sevilla on the mound. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, just win. Like I said, I want to see good at bats, continue to have good at bats. This is going to be a tough test. I thought yesterday was going to be a tough test with John Gray. They handled him with ease. And Pete Alonso got the scoring going early. DJ Stewart with a mammoth shot to that right field over there in Texas. I mean, that was an absolute no doubter, and he had himself a hell of a night. Like you said earlier, I was not pleased to see him in the lineup, but every now and again, he occasionally provides you that. Now, like I said, it's about consistency here, and the jury's still out in terms of what DJ Stewart's official role is going to be on this team moving forward, especially when you have some guys waiting in the wings. Brett Beatty is another lefty option. I mean, Luis Angel Acuna that's going to be a topic very soon because he's swinging a very hot bat in AAA right now. So, and you just have this whole Jeff McNeil discussion, but regardless, all roster move talk aside, I want to see this lineup continue to put up runs, and the pitching will follow. I truly believe if this Mets offense leads the charge, the pitching is going to do exactly what they've been doing. And it's actually funny because you said it earlier in this stream. The pitching was supposed to be the problem of this team, not the offense. It wasn't supposed to be the other way around. We were trying to say how this pitching staff, is it going to fall apart due to injuries? Due to just age, but they've held it together. Bullpen's held it together for the majority of the part, right? Outside of a couple of outliers. But yeah, absolutely. Better at bats, have full confidence in Sevy. I know he's had some walk issues so far this season in terms of just trying to limit those walks, but he's kind of skirted around a lot of those walks. He's been better as of recent, but you got to throw around the strike zone. Keep the pitches competitive. We always talk about that. Keep the pitches competitive, and let's just keep this Mets team competitive.
Yep.
And I don't care what you chalk it up to as a Mets fan. as a Mets reporter, whoever talks about this team, whether it's Grimace and that's why they're playing better, which is kind of insane to think about. But anyways, okay. Or whether you watch this team and just realize that they're playing with more confidence, that Francisco Alvarez is back. And although he's had a slow start with his bat, he means all the difference in the world in terms of the starting pitchers doing what they got to do. So whatever it is, keep fighting, like Carlos said earlier in the chat, and let's win a damn ball game because we're not wearing shades on this stream for no reason.
Damn right.
So that's all I got to say, man. And like I said, last thing here on the stream, appreciate you all being here. Frank saying CP, all due respect. What's the second? One game at a time. Yeah. And I already know that. I know I got it ahead of myself in terms of looking at the schedule. I understand that is one game at a time. I understand that we have a game today. And we got to take this one game at a time because the ultimate goal should be getting up to 500. I understand all that, but it's kind of hard not to feed into this team right now with the way they're looking. And honestly, though, us as fans, why do we have to take it one game at a time? That's their job. We can sit here and look at the schedule all we want for June, and we can play projections all we want. We talk about this team. We don't play for this team. This team can go take it one game at a time. So I'm excited. They've got me excited. They should have everyone excited, and that's it. So yeah, and you know what? As a Mets fan, Rob, we've been through this merry-go-round countless of times. Maybe we're just fools getting our hopes up. Maybe we are. You know what? It's mid-season. Last year when we did streams together, we were talking about a whole marathon of a trade deadline that we kept going for a team that were sellers, pure sellers, selling everybody and their moms. That's it. Like, what are we doing here? What a damn ball game. I love it. Let's go Mets. That's all I got to say.
100%. And final thing, a lot of people are comparing the 2015 Mets or this team to the 2015 Mets. I agree with that, but this roster on paper is a hell of a lot better than that 2015 team. Remember, that 2015 team prior to the trades, I mean, Eric Campbell was cleanup hitter. Like they're not a good roster. Lucas Duda was playing first base. Wilmer Flores was on the team.
Should have never made the World Series. It was a hell of a run. It was shocking, to be honest.
No, they didn't have the roster for that. But it just shows you coming together as a team, like this team is coming together and trusting each other. And, the crying on the field by Wilmer Flores, right? That brought the team together as well. It brought the manager to a whole new level where that Terry Collins, who was never really a good manager in his career, brought him to a new level of being a manager by, having his players back just like Mendoza does. And again, they got a long way to be compared to 2015, right? We could be talking 2 weeks from now where we're back to square one and we ain't talking about 2015 again. But there is a lot of similarities where they struggled. And somebody brought up on WFM, one of the callers, that I think it was 2 days ago or yesterday, that the Mets had the same exact record as the 2019 Washington Nationals. They were 4 games under 500. Exact date of June, I think it was 16th or 17th, excuse me. And they went on to win the World Series. Now, I know you can't compare the Nationals to the Mets of 2024. You can't really do that. But it is eye-opening that, people are like, oh, even 3 days ago, people in the chat were saying, come on, guys, they're not going anywhere, right? You can say that, but we've seen it happen again and again and again. The Phillies were under 500 in 2022, right? The Diamondbacks fell back to 500 prior to going on their run. And the Nationals were 4 games under 500 in around the same time in 2019, around this time in June. So it is possible, right? All it takes is a stretch like this to get the team and get the chemistry and get the camaraderie and get the trust of teammates, and it changes everything. It makes everybody better. And that's why we're I wouldn't say 100% confident, but we feel good about going into a ball game that a lot of times most Met fans don't feel good about any game. We're going to be like, I don't know what's going to happen in this game. We don't trust this team. I trust this team right now. I trust them. Now, maybe they lose today, maybe, but I trust them knowing that they're not going to, put their heads down and hide in the corner if they lose today and try to win the series tomorrow. So I feel confident about today. With Sevy on the mound, you win today, man. You know how pumped Met fans are going to be. We're already pumped. You know how crazy Met fans are going to be going for the sweep tomorrow? Oh my! I need to do a pregame, postgame, in between game, everything, because Met fans are ready. We're ready to explode, and we're starting to like this team. We're starting to love this team. You see how many people showed up at Citi Field since they were winning? They had 30,000+ a night. Not just the giveaway; it was the other days too. You see how fast believing in the team, just a skimmer of hope, brings fans to the ballpark when there's nothing to do pre or post game. They want to see the team. You go to Citi Field, you're watching the game. That's one thing I could say that I still love about Citi Field, is that there's nothing to do anywhere outside of Citi Field pre or post. So you know if you go to the game, guess why they're there? For the New York Mets. They want to see the team. So let's finish this road trip, and it starts tonight in game 2. Take care of business, win the series, and we're playing with house money tomorrow, and we'll probably try to get greedy during our next pregame. Maybe with sunglasses, probably with sunglasses. So
Yeah,
Chris,
they win tonight, and the sunglasses are making the appearance tomorrow for
damn right.
damn sure. And one thing that you just said before we wrap up here, and that I want to just sort of like back up and echo and make sure everyone understands: if they go out there and lose today, that doesn't like diminish anything that they've been doing over this last stretch of games. It doesn't diminish it at all. But like you said, it's about whether they bounce back the next game, knowing that they need to take a series. So it's about like the mental toughness in that aspect. Losing is going to happen. I just want to reinforce that, because sometimes when teams go on these runs and the Mets go on these runs, I think there's a little bit of unrealistic expectations that get thrown out there. And after the first loss, right, in a while, everyone starts losing their minds again. So even if they lose tonight, not saying they will, I have very big confidence, very high confidence, like Rob does. Like he just said, it's not the end of the world. We'll be back at it for game 3, the rubber match, trying to take that one. So great point by you, Rob. As always, hit the thumbs up on the stream. This is being streamed to my YouTube and Rob's YouTube. Hit the thumbs up on both. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. All that good stuff. We're talking Mets all 2024 long, and we appreciate y'all being here. Thank you for the support.
Absolutely. So that's another amazing Mets pregame show in the books, guys. We appreciate you guys in the chat. I had a consistent 100 in the stream today on my channel and on X as well. So we appreciate that. If you are on X on X with me and Chris, make sure you jump over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel, because listen, you're not always going to be on X. You can always come on YouTube and subscribe to the channel, and you get to know when we're live and when we put up our videos. So with that said, guys, let's get win number 35 and get one step closer to 500 and get pumped, Met fans, because tonight I'm feeling good. You better feel good. Chris is feeling good. We got our shades on. We're going to have them on tomorrow, win or lose, because we trust this team right now. And you got to ride that momentum with this team, and that's what we're going to do. With that said, guys, everybody have a great night. Let's go Mets. In about a little more than an hour, the Mets got a game, and they'll be ready to go with Sevy on the mound. Have a great night, guys. Let's go Mets. We'll see you next time.
Let's go Mets.
Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets